The SUV and crossover market has continued to grow. However, despite this, intermediate sedans are still important. So in this comparison, we're going to be looking at the Honda Accord and of course our star, the Mazda 6. The Mazda 6 is widely regarded as the most elegant and stylish vehicle in the intermediate sedan segment. The reason why is the Kodo Solo Motion design. The car has flowing lines that really originate from this long hood. And why the long hood? Well, this has been accomplished because the windshield has been pulled back, as have the A-pillars. Pulling back the A-pillars improves the driver's line of sight. So does moving the mirror. You'll notice a lot of car companies simply drill a hole in this plastic panel and mount their mirror there. It's an inexpensive way to do it, but it's not what we do. We move the mirror back and we move it down and we mount it on the shoulder of the door. Because we do that, we eliminate this blind spot that's so common in so many vehicles. We reduce wind noise, we reduce drag, and as a result, we improve fuel consumption, all by moving a mirror. Pretty terrific. So let's go see how Honda builds a car. The Honda Accord for years has been the vehicle to beat. However, lately, some would argue it's lost ground. In fact, if you go to carandriver.com, you'll find it's currently in third place behind the Mazda 6 and, more tellingly, the Chevy Malibu. So why? The first thing to note is the old school proportions, the short hood and a deep dash and a windshield that's been pulled forward. Beyond that, the A-pillars are pulled forward as a result, and the mirror is mounted right here, creating a blind spot. As we move back, you'll notice, despite the size of the vehicle, the windows don't go all the way down in the door. That's a bit old school and certainly not what you'll find on the Mazda 6. Under the hood of the Mazda 6, you'll find our SkyActiv technology. You see evidence of it in a few places. The first is our SkyActiv G engine. It's a 2.5-liter SkyActiv G engine that makes 184 horsepower and 185 pound-feet of torque. And in this application, it's connected to a state-of-the-art SkyActiv Drive automatic transmission. From there, you can't help but notice the SkyActiv body. You'll see how we've got a continuous steel structure all the way around the opening, and it's connected into the steel structure in the floor. You'll also see evidence of Kodo. And why Kodo? Because Kodo is about craftsmanship. And so if you look at the welds and the quality of the caulking, the quality of the finishing under the hood is really extraordinary. You see further evidence of that under the hood. We've got a noise insulation blanket here, very nicely finished, with 2 rubber seals at the front to help seal out the weather. We also see these rubber seals along the side and along the back. And underneath is a full engine cover to seal the engine compartment. Really important. You look under the hood of the Honda Accord, and this is clearly something altogether different. On paper, their engine appears to be a match for ours, until you look at the exhaust manifold and you realize, rather than our 421, you've got a single pipe off the front, very constricted, and it goes underneath the engine, which means they can't properly shield the engine compartment like we're able to. From there, you'll notice the fit and finish everywhere you look, and I'll give you an example of what I mean. This appears to be a continuous structure, but in fact, you'll notice it's not comparable to our SkyActiv body. In fact, what look to be continuous welds, in fact, aren't. It's a simple pinch weld here, and we can see that with a business card. Some of the other things to look out for, there's no engine cover from a sound perspective. The sound deadening blanket is very coarsely cut and poorly executed, and the battery is placed right at the front. And that's a bad idea for a number of reasons. The first is, even in a low-speed collision, it's going to be the first thing to get damaged, which means you may not be able to start your car after the collision. The other thing is, having that much weight in the front of the vehicle compromises handling, which is why we've got it at the back of the engine compartment. From there, you'll notice they put in a strut tower brace, something we didn't have to do because our strut towers are tied into structure. That's one more advantage for our SkyActiv body. As you walk around to the back of the Mazda 6, you see further evidence of what happens when you have a great structure. Look through and you'll see an opening that's virtually the width of the vehicle with a lot of clearance. You'll also notice that it's a completely flat load floor, which means I can load things in easily. From there are numerous small details that set it apart from the Accord. The hinges are wrapped and they go into these pockets. And on either side of the load floor, you've got plastic little catch-alls. And finally, underneath the load floor is a hard plastic reinforcement which won't get damaged if you put something wet in the trunk. Not the case with the Accord. We saw under the hood of the Honda Accord that the structure they have isn't the equal of a SkyActiv body. As a result, neither is their trunk. When you look in, you'll notice the opening is significantly smaller than ours, and that's because they've got to weld in brackets to shore up the structure to make sure they can pass safety standards. Beyond that, there's no storage on either side. There's nothing to receive the hinges, so if you put a box down here when you close the trunk, you're going to crush it. And finally, the hinges themselves aren't finished. You've got exposed wiring and zip ties. Furthermore, there's no storage on either side, And when you look underneath, this is all done in particle board, meaning if it gets wet from shoes or boots in the wintertime, sooner or later it's going to swell and disintegrate. For the 2017 model year, the Mazda 6 features further upgrades into the interior. The example we're looking at features the premium package. The seats here are in Napa leather with piping along the edges. It helps to elevate what was already a best-in-class interior. Despite the presence of Honda Connect with its 2 screens, the interior of the Accord feels a little dated. It's a combination of the shapes, the overall execution, and the materials. The interior of the Honda Accord simply doesn't compare to the Mazda 6. That's most evident when we look at the seats. Consumers typically pick leather because they want a more upscale feeling interior. However, they'd be forgiven for thinking this is vinyl on these seats. That's particularly noticeable when you apply any pressure and you watch the way that it creases. The back seat of the Mazda 6 is designed to provide edge-to-edge comfort. Both the seat bottom and the backs are fully upholstered edge-to-edge for ideal comfort. You'll notice it's in particular when the seat is folded flat. The width of the section that folds down is 6 inches wider than on the Accord, and the side pieces that remain are fully upholstered and cushioned, unlike the Accord. The rear seat of the Honda Accord makes a good first impression. At a glance, it appears to be spacious and comfortable, but that's a bit of an illusion. When you fold down the rear seat back, you'll find it's 6 inches narrower than the rear seat back in a Mazda 6. That's a noticeable difference. The side bolsters, in fact, don't fold down and aren't part of the seat and are relatively hard plastic covered with a thin veneer of upholstery. You'll also see on the floor there's a hard plastic shield that you have to lift your feet up, over, and into, almost like putting your feet in a pail. The net result is the seat isn't as comfortable or as spacious as it might first appear. Inside every Mazda 6 is Mazda Connect. This innovative system allows the driver to control a range of functions through the touchscreen, but also, more importantly, once the vehicle is moving, through the HMI commander. This exclusive controller is located on the central console and ensures that the driver has minimum distractions when the vehicle is in motion. In the Honda Accord, you'll find a Honda Link. In this particular application, there are 2 screens, and what's interesting is that frequently both screens are displaying the same information. Now, the only way to control these screens is by touching them. There is no HMI commander, which means if you're on the road, you're continually touching this, including when you're playing with volume. It's not a safe way to drive. Time after time, car and driver selects the Mazda 6 over the Honda Accord as the vehicle to beat in the segment. There's a reason why, and we saw that today. Beyond the way that looks, there's craftsmanship, spaciousness, and just the overall fit and finish. Simply put, the Honda Accord is a car resting on its laurels, while the Mazda 6 represents the car to beat in the segment. Good luck and good selling.